Hey, this morning I am going to put some under cabinet lighting in our kitchen, and much like the tile in my bathroom, it's been 4 years I've had yellow wires hanging from the cabinets, but I'm going to tackle this morning and get it done. What we're putting in is a Kichler 7-inch under cabinet lighting is what this particular one is. I've got some 18-inch, some 12-inch, some 30-inch. These are dimmable. They're very low profile, and they're LEDs. They're very bright. I'll show you one that I've already put in, and they're linkable too, so if you don't have a wire in every location, you can run a low voltage wire, or I guess it's not a low voltage wire, but you can run a little whip that they sell from one fixture to the next, and they just plug in. So here's one that I actually already installed. You can see how bright it is. I do not have a dimmer on it right now. I will once I get everything done. But I'm going to go ahead and get some of these installed this morning, and I'll let you watch through the process. So part of what I want to do here is cut these wires back a little bit. You don't want to cut them too short, obviously, because they're hardwired inside the wall. But you don't want more wire than you need because there's just no room for it in the box. Here's what one of these fixtures looks like. And you can see there's a port right here where you could plug a fixture in. It comes back out on the other side. And you take a little screwdriver, and then this will pop right open. So this will pop open, and then you're going to knock one of these tabs out in the back, and you're going to bring your wires through. But like I said, you can see there's not much room at all. And then this does have an on-off switch as well. And this is the 8U series by Kichler. So 7-inch under cabinet lighting, 8U series. And they had 2 or 3 different series, and I think this was the top of the ladder as far as the quality goes, but I didn't want to skimp because I think a good under cabinet light really looks awesome. But anyway, just so you know what I'm working with here. So this is going to come with a hardware pack, which it has 2 screws to mount it, and these screws are typically the right length so that they will not go up through the bottom of the cabinet. You're going to actually install here, so the screw head sits down into about here and then sticks out less than 3/4 of an inch, which is typically the depth of the bottom of the cabinet. And then these are 2 little plugs that you will cover the if you're not going to use these for an electrical whip, then you would just cover those with those plugs. And then the last thing that comes in the hardware pack is a connector to run your wire through. And it's tiny. You basically have enough room just to run your wires through. Trying to get the sheathing through as well is tough, especially if you have 2 wires. So what I did on the other one was just cut the sheathing to where it was right there, and then I put the I cut the sheeting, sorry, wrong end. The sheeting came just into here, and then it stopped, and then just the wires themselves came through the hole. So, like I said, you got to kind of plan it out a little bit and make sure you get your wires cut to the proper length. So you're going to want to stick this through the hole. And actually, if I remember correctly, so if you see what I did, if you look here on the back, there's two tabs, and the driver here basically just slides into those tabs, and that's what holds the driver in place. So what I did was just popped it loose, that way I had a little more room to get my wires in here and get things set up. The wire nuts we're going to use are these guys, which are the quick connect wire nuts, which are awesome. And all you have to do is strip your wires and slide them right into the two available holes on each wire nut, and then you got your ground. So real quick and easy. And then you can just pop that driver back in when you're done. So what I will typically do is take the screw, or the nut, and I'll take it and I'll slide it in here, and I'll just hold it with my fingers. It's with this door on here, which it does not look like the door comes off easily, but you can see that right there. I'll just kind of get it lined up with the hole and hold it in place. While I tighten this from the outside. So you get it started anyway, and then it like I said, there's not okay, so now we have that in there. It's mounted. It's ready to go. I put the screws on the bottom so that I can tighten this up after I get my wires through, and once we get this installed I can go ahead and tighten these up at the very end. When I strip a wire, I typically just make a little cut on the top and a little cut on the bottom, just opposite. And you got to get them lined up with each other though. And just pull, and it'll come right off, and you can remove the paper from your ground wire. And you're going to have to try to get all 6 of these wires to go through that little hole in the connector, which is a challenge. So in this case we're going to have two lights side by side because I couldn't get the size that I needed. So what I'm going to do is take the other one out of the box, and I'm going to make sure that I mount this one so that I've got equal distance on both sides of the light to the outside of the cabinet with a nice gap in the middle. So it looks like we're going to have plenty of room. So what I'm going to do is take a measurement. I got 29 inches. I have a fixture here that is 18, and this one is actually measures 6.5, even though it's called a 7-inch fixture. This one measures 18, and it is an 18-inch fixture. So what I say, I have 29, and I have 18 and 6.5. I have 24.5 inches of lighting, and so I have 4.5 inches. So maybe I'll do an inch on both ends and leave the other 2.5 inches in the middle, because I'm going to have to connect these two with a cord that plugs in, and I'm not sure exactly what that cord looks like, but I want to make sure I leave enough room that I can get the plug in here and they're not touching each other, if that makes sense. So I'm going to mount this 1 inch off of the side of the cabinet. So let me get that laid out. One of my biggest pet peeves is when guys use ink pens and markers to mark things that are pretty. My opinion, anytime you're marking anything that's ever possibly going to be seen again, you should use a pencil, because you can erase it if you make a mistake. And we all make mistakes. As I mentioned, you should always check to make sure that these screws that you're putting in are not going to go up through the floor of your cabinet. I've already installed one, so I know that they're okay. Alright, there we go. Alright, so at this point we can test the light, and it works. And now we can come back here, turn the light back off so you're not working with live wires. And we got to try to get everything to fit nicely up inside this box. Now I clipped this driver back in prior to fastening it in place. And there you're back up in place. And now we've got a light. And the switch works. And we are all set. Turn that back off. I'm going to finish tightening this up. So I'm gonna and there you go. Now, next thing we need to check. So the next thing we need to check is to make sure that now that we've hooked this up, that the next wire down the line is hot and that it's not interrupted somehow or somewhere. So what I'm going to do is use just a hot stick tester. Again, it's a Milwaukee. Turn it on. This one is great because you know it's working and the battery's not dead because it actually has a flashlight on it, which comes in real handy when you're in a tight spot. And then you always want to test it something that you know is hot. So I know that outlet works, so I know I'm good there. Something else you could do is hold it up back here where you know those wires coming out of the back of the fixture are hot. Now come over here, and I labeled these wires when I ran the wires in the house before drywall went in, and it says feed from light on the right side, which would be this one, and then this one says feed to the light on the left side. So this is the one that's going to feed the next one. This one's coming from here. So this wire should technically be hot right now because it's hooked up in the light. So it is. And this one should not be because it's not connected to this one yet. So at this point we can just move forward and go on down the line and hook all these up around. Now I do have to put this 7-incher up here. However, I'm going to probably go ahead and get it screwed in place, but I don't have the little wire that connects. I only had one wire here. I was hoping just to use one fixture, but the sizes that Kichler sold did not work out for this cabinet, so instead I just ordered 2 different ones, and then the sales guy thought that it came with the wires we needed to connect, and he was incorrect, so I just got to call them and order one wire to connect these 2 fixtures. That way I don't have a dark spot right here. And so anyway, that's that. Alright, so we're going to turn the next light off, or turn the light off so that we can run the next one.
So it's important to be extra careful when you're installing the lights. I showed you how small the hole was in the connector in the back of the light fixture. After stripping the wires and putting the wires through the connector, I realized that I had scraped the protective coating off of the hot wire on the first light fixture that I put up. So I ended up removing the light fixture again and putting electrical tape over top of the wire where it had been stripped. Part of the reason that this is potentially a big problem is if you were to damage the wires too badly, you would be in a spot where you wouldn't be able to fix it because the wires are coming through the back of a cabinet that's fastened to the wall with a tile backsplash already in place, and it would be very difficult to try to repair or fix the wire. You would actually have to remove the cabinet from the wall and cut the wall open, and then one way or another fix the wire, which could get complicated. So you want to be extra careful when you are installing these because of the extra small hole in the connector. Other than that, I think that everything went very smoothly. You can see that I spent a little bit of time on my back on the countertop because under cabinet lights are very difficult to get to, and trying to make those connections upside down or leaning over the edge of the countertop is just not fun. So I ended up just climbing on the countertop and laying on my back, as I felt that that was the easiest way to make the connections and be able to see what I was doing.
So something I learned on this 7-inch fixture, there is, I told you that I was going to use a whip to connect this one to the other one, and what I've learned is that this one, I opened the box and there was no connector. Well, that's because there's no holes in the back of this to punch out and put a connector in. And then when you open it up, you'll see the wire nuts, which made me think, yes, you can. But then if you actually look at these wire nuts, there's no available spaces. They're using them just to run their internal wiring from one port to the other. So it's a good thing we're using it that way, and maybe the guy didn't mention that to me over the phone because he knew that I was going to use it with a plug. But whatever the case is, don't buy a 7-inch if you're planning to hardwire it, because there's no room. It can't be done. So there you go.
In hindsight, I probably would have ordered the lights before running the wires, and then I would have known that I could connect the light fixtures with a lead wire that is provided by the light manufacturer. With me not knowing that, I wanted to run wires to each individual light, which creates 2 wires at every light so it can feed the next one, with the exception of the last light only having 1 wire.
Alright, so there you have it. You can see all of these lights that we now have installed. Everything is installed. The only thing that is not functioning is that 7-inch fixture right there. You can see I've got it mounted up there. I just need to get the wire that connects the two. And again, you can see that there's 2 plugs right there side by side. Just need to get it up there. We'll coil it up nice and pretty, put a zip tie on it or something, and fasten it to the bottom of the cabinet so it's not hanging. But it's a pretty clean installation. You don't see wires anywhere. I held the fronts of the lights 5 3/4 of an inch off of the back rail. So from the back wooden rail, which is about 3/4 of an inch thick, to the front edge is 5 3/4. And then in most cases I went 1 inch here on both sides. The only place that was different was here, because this was a 38-inch space underneath the cabinet with a 30-inch light, so I went 4 inches on the 2 sides. And then here in the corner, you can see how my overlap is. These 2 lights are probably, there's probably about a 2-inch overlap there, or something of that manner. So that's it. I've got 3 more under cabinet lights to put in a bar area. And then I've got 2 that I'm going to put up inside of some upper cabinets that have glass fronts on them. But that'll be another video. So hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can subscribe to our page and like the video. And by subscribing, you'll see our videos in the future. Thanks for watching.